Our adventure through the rugged terrain and heat of the Kalahari had us searching for a place to quench our thirst. About 100 kilometers from Rimfasmark, we found ourselves at the Bazalel Wine and Brandy Estate.
The estate today is a family-run operation. It's currently my father, my brother and myself, as well as my mother and my brother's wife, all doing their part in the business today. However, my brother and I are currently fourth generation on the estate, starting with my great-grandfather and my grandfather, originally moving here from the Kalahari Desert as sheep farmers. Originally, this area was more renowned for rotational crops and the sort, and the vines or vineyards were only introduced in the late 50s, early 60s. Because we started with this type of rotational crop, you can still find a variety of different produce being produced along the Orange River. Not only vines, but also cotton and dates and even pecan nuts and so forth.
The Bazalel family have a long history along the Orange River.
The family itself, and as well as the estate itself, has a pretty long history along the Orange River, in the sense that it originally started out as an area known as Dyson's Clip, which received its name from the Kurana War, as General Dyson was killed on this piece of land and also buried here next to a very big rock formation, and therefore the name Dyson's Clip or Dyson's Rock, where it was buried. But over time, as the family started developing and started diverging, the area was also split between family members, and today this specific estate was first known as Bazalel Dyson's Clip, and in 2007 we became an official estate, and then the name consolidated to just Bazalel Estate or Wine and Brandy Estate.
Little details around the estate are reminders of times gone by.
Right, so even today, even though today you find a modern estate and wine cellar here, you still find remnants of olden times here on the estate or on the premises as well. For instance, the local post office, which is run off of the estate. My mother is currently the postmaster, even though she doesn't receive very much of a salary for that role. It does serve to remind us of where we came from and where the estate originated and how it was built. From a much more simplistic era and simplistic time.
At the Bazalel Estate, wine production is taken seriously, but it's their brandy that sets them apart.
Of course, our wines are very important to us. We do red and white cultivars, as well as some sweet wines. But from those same type of grapes, we also produce some of the nicest pure pot still brandies, of course, aged in only imported French oak and aged for about 5 or 10 years, being two different set of products that we create. But with that brandy, again, we also make a range of infusions, like some liqueurs, for instance. We have lovely date liqueurs, which is very unique to our region, as well as some coffee liqueurs and even mulberry liqueurs, which are very interesting as well.
The estate also produces some unique creations like the Meerkat Nosy Neighbour wine.
This is truly a unique wine in the sense that it contains a little bit from a different variety of regions in the world. It is, for instance, made from Pinot Noir, which is a French cultivar, and this specific Pinot Noir was affected by a German disease in 2010 known as Botrytis cincera, which normally allows you to create wines known as noble late harvest wines, right? But with this noble late harvest Pinot Noir, which was the first in South Africa back in 2010, we actually blended this with a little bit of unaffected Pinot Noir, as well as fortified it with a little bit of Portuguese port or Porto wine as it's called, and then aged it for about 2 years in imported French oak. After 2 years, when we opened that barrel for the first time, we were kind of surprised to find that it had developed floor yeast on top, which is a specific type of yeast you find in sherry production, and this is actually the yeast that gives sherry its specific flavor. So already it was shaping up to be a very interesting wine in the sense that it was a French wine affected by a German disease, fortified with a Portuguese wine, and then allowed to develop a Spanish yeast on top, right? But for good measure, we took what the result of that process, and we actually blended it with a little bit of South African rosé, ending up in the meerkat, the Nosy Neighbour, which is a very intense flavor experience and something that really represents the type of character you can expect to come from our region.
All this talk of unique wines and liquor got us curious about the production process.
Now, we personally use French oak. Even though you do not have to use French oak, we can use American or Canadian, even Hungarian oak if you want to. Sadly, we cannot use indigenous of African oak trees. Because our weather is so nice, our trees actually grow too quickly, so they're not dense enough for the purpose, they're too porous. Therefore, we import from France, and we personally prefer the French oak because of the traditional aspect of it, and because of the specific character it will lend to the product. After this aging process in French oak, it is then actually blended with a little bit of distilled water and then goes straight into the bottle, and it is sold as 100% pure pot still brandies.
Our quest to quench our thirst was fulfilled, and we'd learnt more than we bargained for on our stop here. But it was time to get back on the road as we headed to our journey's end, Keimoes.
Nosy Neighbour, now that's an interesting name for a wine. The final visit on our Green Kalahari adventure was Keimoes, which is also this week's tempting town.
As our journey was coming to an end, we found ourselves in a very green part of the Green Kalahari.
It is an amazing scene to travel on. As you enter Keimoes, right now on our right-hand side, it basically looks like a carpet. It is something totally different, not experienced in many parts of South Africa. However, there is a lot of tourist attractions, the historical buildings, the water wheel behind me. There is a lot that you can experience. There is, raisin factories that export those goods, even Britain, the USA, and etc.
There are variations to the story of how the town was named. According to some, Keimoes comes from the Nama words Ge, meaning great, and Mus, meaning fountain. But others believe that Klaas Lucas, the leader of a local tribe, the Korana River people, named the settlement he established on the banks of the Orange River after discovering a colony of mice were already living there. The Korana word Keimoes means mouse nest. But there is another meaning as well.
Keimoes is 'n pragtige klein dorpie wat lê op die N14 en die R27. Dit is ook die hartklop van die roete vanaf Kaapstad, Appington, Johannesburg of vice versa, ook na Namibië. So daar gaan soveel toeriste hier deur. Keimoes beteken groot oog of die oog wat kan ver sien. En jy het die pragtigste uitsig as jy op Loerkop staan. Eintlik is die naam Tierberg en jy kyk om jou heen, dan sien jy die swart slangpad wat na Keimoes kronkel, jy sien die pad na Kenna en jy sien in die aand selfs Appington se liggies. Wat 'n onvergeetlike ervaring is.
Semantics of the town's name aside, it's a beautiful island oasis that is often referred to as the lost piece of the Boland. One of the main attractions here is the Tierberg Mountain, which is a few kilometers away. At this lookout point, you can see just why this area is part of the Green Kalahari. The town and area has only recently started exploring its tourism potential.
Tourism is basically currently, as explained in South Africa, a soft area for job creation. Normally the kind of jobs not being seen by, most of the communities, but it is a major job creator, especially in this area, Keimoes, Keimoes, or in the entire Keigerib area.
At the information center, tourists can find out what there is to do around the town.
Om toerisme te kan bekendstel, moet jy 'n inligtingseentrum hê. Ek het geen kennis gehad nie, maar ek het in my motor geklim, verskillende inligtingsentrums besoek en besluit Ons gaan op Keimoes se inligtingseentrum doen wat onvergeetlik vir elke ou gaan wees wat deur daardie deur gaan stap. En ons het dit reg gekry. Ons gee hier inligting oor die area, maar ons doen ook die hele Noord-Kaap. Ons gee vir hulle inligting, ons gee vir hulle verblyf, ons reël vir hulle toere. En wat so wonderlik is, daar's so baie vir die kinders om te doen. So ons groot droom is om families weer aan mekaar te bind, om vir families die geleentheid te gee, om die area te geniet, om dinge saam te kan doen, en net te weet, hierdie was 'n belewenis wat ek vir niks sal verruil nie, maar ek sal dit weer wil ervaar.
The beauty of the area, like many other South African towns, inspires local artists like Bruce Miller, who grew up here and only after high school discovered his artistic talent.
I Keimoes with a wonderful vineyards, the Orange River, the red dunes, the guava trees, the aloes give me a great inspiration to do my work. As you can see some of my paintings in here. And the information center is the place where I exhibit my stuff.
Nature lovers will be thrilled with a quiver tree nursery, which houses some indigenous and unique plants.
The aloe dichotoma is endemic to this area, and it's one of the 5 tree aloes. The other 2 quiver trees is the aloe pilansi and the aloe ramosissima from the Richtersveld. They are endangered, but the aloe dichotoma is only protected. It's protected flora, so there's by no means you can put it out or take it out and travel with it without a permit.
If plants are not the part of the outdoors that excite you, there are some grueling 4x4 trails that may be more your speed.
What we are offering now is 4x4 routes for the tourists as well as hiking trails. And what we want to achieve in future is to also do mountain biking and then accommodation for the tourists. Basically, we want to build overnight facilities for the tourists for better experience.
The trail, along with other activities, are the initiative of the local Blokuso Trust. They purchased the land over 10 years ago from the local church.
Blokuso itself is not a profitable organization, so the benefits that we get from the tourism facility here is for the trust itself and to sustain the trust. So basically, all the projects that we are the funds that we generate there is for the benefit of the trust.
Another example of how tourism is promoting job creation in small rural towns where the economy would otherwise be flat. Our Green Kalahari adventure has come to an end. From Pella to Keimoes to the Ochrabis Falls and then Rimfasmark, we took the road less travelled and found a unique, beautiful corner of South Africa that any adventurer would revel in.